In the kingdom of monsters, some men become legends, others become bullets. He was both. In the scorched valleys of Culiacan, Sinaloa, where the sun burns hotter than hope and the soil tastes like blood, Ignacio Páez Soto was born in 1982. His mother worked in a maquiladora for pennies, stitching clothes for Americans she would never meet. His father, a name on a birth certificate, nothing more. A ghost before Ignacio even learned what ghosts were. The neighborhood was a graveyard of abandoned cars and broken dreams. Children played in streets where bodies appeared like morning dew, quiet, expected, ignored. The police didn't come here. The government pretended this place didn't exist. In Culiacan, you were born with two choices: become invisible or become a weapon. Ignacio chose neither at first. He simply watched. As a boy, he was quiet. Too quiet. Teachers forgot his name. Classmates never picked him for games. But behind those empty eyes, something was calculating. He watched how the narcos moved through the streets, confident, untouchable, alive. He watched how everyone else moved, heads down, voices low, already dead. And young Ignacio learned the only lesson Sinaloa ever taught. Power is the only language that matters here. At 12, he dropped out of school. Not because he was stupid, but because school taught him nothing about survival. The streets were his university now. He started running errands for local dealers, delivering messages, watching corners, learning the rhythm of violence. He never asked questions. He never complained. He just watched, absorbed, and waited. By 15, Ignacio had killed his first man. It wasn't planned. A dealer named Chuy had disrespected him in front of others, called him a nobody, slapped him like a child. That night, Ignacio followed Chuy home. No hesitation, no fear, just a knife in the dark and a body in an alley. When they found Chuy the next morning, throat opened like a second smile, no one suspected the quiet kid. Ghosts don't leave fingerprints. But someone noticed. A lieutenant in the Sinaloa Cartel named El Gordo had heard about the killing. Most men would have been afraid, but El Gordo saw potential. He found Ignacio the next week and offered him a choice. Work for me, or I put you in the ground next to Chuy. Ignacio didn't blink. He simply nodded. That nod changed everything. 2. The making of a weapon. El Gordo didn't train Ignacio with speeches or lessons. He trained him with blood. At 16, Ignacio was handed a gun and told to kill a snitch. No details, no reasons, just a name and an address. Ignacio walked into the man's house at dawn, put 2 bullets in his head while his family slept in the next room, and walked out. No panic, no guilt, just the job. El Gordo watched him closely after that. Most young sicarios were loud, reckless, drunk on power. They wore gold chains, posted photos with guns, died stupid deaths before 25. But Ignacio was different. He was silent, methodical. He didn't drink, didn't party, didn't brag. He lived in a small apartment with nothing but a mattress, a TV, and a closet full of weapons. His life had one purpose now: to be perfect at killing. The Sinaloa Cartel was an empire built on terror, and terror required men who could deliver it without hesitation. Ignacio became one of those men. He was sent to Tijuana to eliminate a rival crew. He killed 4 men in one night. Clean, efficient, no witnesses. He was sent to Juarez to execute a corrupt cop who had taken money from the wrong people. The cop's body was found hanging from a bridge with a sign, "This is what happens to traitors." But Ignacio never wrote the signs. He never made the statements. He just pulled the trigger. By 18, he had a nickname: El Silencio, the silence. Because when Ignacio Páez Soto came for you, you never heard him. No warnings, no second chances. Just a shadow in the doorway, and then darkness. The cartel bosses loved him. He was reliable. He didn't steal. He didn't talk. He didn't ask for more money or power. He simply did the work and disappeared. In a world where ego killed more sicarios than bullets, Ignacio's invisibility made him invaluable. But invisibility came with a cost. He had no friends, no family, no lovers. Women tried to get close, but he pushed them away. Relationships were weaknesses, and weaknesses got you killed. He ate alone. He slept alone. He existed in a state of permanent readiness, always waiting for the next call, the next name, the next body. Some men are broken by this life. Ignacio wasn't broken. He was erased. The boy who once sold oranges on the roadside no longer existed. In his place was a machine, cold and efficient, built for one thing: death. 3. Rising through the ranks. By his early 20s, Ignacio had become one of the most trusted enforcers in the Sinaloa Cartel. While other sicarios were loud and stupid, dying in shootouts or getting arrested with bags of crystal in their trunks, Ignacio operated in silence. He planned his hits like a surgeon, studied his targets like a detective, and executed them like a ghost. He was sent to Monterrey to eliminate a businessman who had refused to launder money for the cartel. Ignacio spent 2 weeks learning the man's routine: where he ate breakfast, when he picked up his kids, which route he took to work. Then one morning, as the man stopped at a red light, Ignacio walked up to his car and put 3 bullets through the window. The man died instantly. Ignacio disappeared into the crowd. No one saw his face. No cameras caught him. Just another dead body in a city full of them. The bosses were impressed. They gave him bigger jobs, more dangerous jobs, jobs that required precision and ruthlessness. In 2005, he was sent to eliminate an entire family, a low-level dealer who had stolen product and tried to flee to the United States. Ignacio tracked him to a small house in Nogales, Arizona. He crossed the border illegally, found the house, and killed the dealer, his wife, and his 2 teenage sons. Then he walked back across the desert into Mexico like nothing had happened. This wasn't cruelty for cruelty's sake. This was business. In the cartel world, betrayal wasn't punished with jail time or fines. It was punished with extinction. And Ignacio was the extinction event. But despite his success, Ignacio never celebrated. He didn't buy mansions or expensive cars. He didn't throw parties or flaunt his wealth. He lived modestly, almost monastically. The only luxury he allowed himself was a collection of guns: Glocks, AR-15s, AK-47s, each one cleaned and maintained with obsessive care. His weapons were the only things he trusted. By 2008, Ignacio had killed more than 50 people. Some were rival cartel members. Some were cops. Some were journalists who asked too many questions. Some were just unlucky. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong witness. He didn't keep count. Numbers didn't matter. Only the work mattered. And the work never stopped. In 2008, the Sinaloa Cartel went to war with the Juarez Cartel for control of the border city, the most valuable smuggling route into the United States. Thousands of soldiers were sent in by the Mexican government, but they were useless. This wasn't a war fought in open fields with tanks and flags. This was a war fought in alleys, in nightclubs, in homes. A war of ambushes and executions and terror. Ignacio was sent to Juarez as part of an elite kill squad. His orders were simple: eliminate the Juarez leadership and anyone who protected them. Over the next 2 years, Ignacio became a legend in the blood-soaked streets of that dying city. He killed a Juarez lieutenant in broad daylight outside a supermarket. He killed a police commander in his own home while his family ate dinner downstairs. He killed a journalist who had written an article exposing cartel corruption, shot him 17 times outside his office. The message was always the same: no one is safe, no one is untouchable. But the Juarez cartel fought back. They sent their own sicarios after Sinaloa members. Bodies piled up on both sides. The city became a graveyard. More than 10,000 people died in those 2 years. Mothers, fathers, children. It didn't matter. If you were connected to the wrong side, you died. Ignacio survived because he was smarter than everyone else. He never stayed in the same place twice. He never trusted anyone. He changed phones every week, cars every month. He moved like smoke through the city, impossible to catch, impossible to kill. But even ghosts leave traces. In 2010, the Mexican military raided a safe house in Juarez and found evidence linking Ignacio to at least 12 murders. His name appeared on intelligence reports. His face was shown in briefings. For the first time in his life, Ignacio Páez Soto was no longer invisible. The cartel bosses told him to disappear for a while, lay low, let the heat die down. So Ignacio did what he always did. He obeyed. He left Juarez and vanished into the mountains of Sinaloa, where the government couldn't reach him and the only law was cartel law. But invisibility is addictive. And once you lose it, you can never truly get it back. For 2 years, Ignacio lived in the mountains like a ghost. He stayed in small villages where everyone knew the cartel and no one asked questions. He helped the locals sometimes, fixing a roof, giving money to a widow, buying food for children. Not because he cared, but because it kept him safe. In Sinaloa, loyalty was bought with favors, and Ignacio understood that better than anyone. But he was restless. Killing was the only thing he knew, the only thing that made him feel alive. Without it, he was nothing, just a man waiting to die. In 2012, the cartel called him back. The war in Juarez was over. Sinaloa had won. But new enemies had emerged. The Zetas, a brutal cartel of ex-military soldiers, were pushing into Sinaloa territory. They were vicious, disciplined, and heavily armed. The Sinaloa bosses needed their best men to fight back. Ignacio returned to the front lines. This time, the war was different. The Zetas didn't follow the old rules. They didn't just kill their enemies. They tortured them, beheaded them, hung their bodies from bridges as warnings. They posted videos online of their executions, turning murder into propaganda. Ignacio adapted. If the Zetas wanted brutality, he would give them brutality. He led a team of sicarios into Zetas territory in Coahuila. They kidnapped 5 Zetas members, tortured them for information, then killed them and left their bodies in the town square with a message: Sinaloa owns this land. But the Zetas responded in kind. They ambushed one of Ignacio's safe houses, killing 3 of his men and burning the building to the ground. The violence escalated. More bodies, more blood, more terror. For Ignacio, this was just another war. He had fought in Tijuana, in Juarez, and now in Coahuila. He had survived them all. But survival wasn't the same as living. He was 30 years old and felt like 100. His body was covered in scars, bullet wounds, knife cuts, burns. His mind was a wasteland of faces and screams, of triggers pulled and bodies falling. He didn't sleep anymore. Not really. Just brief moments of unconsciousness between nightmares. He saw the people he had killed. Dozens of them, maybe more. They stared at him with empty eyes, asking why. He had no answer. He never had an answer. But he kept going, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering meant feeling, and feeling would destroy him. So he killed, and killed, and killed. By 2014, Ignacio Páez Soto had become a legend in the underworld. Stories about him spread like folklore, some true, some exaggerated, all terrifying. They said he had killed more than 100 men. They said he could disappear into thin air. They said he felt no fear, no pain, no remorse. They said he was already dead inside, just a walking corpse with a gun. The truth was simpler and sadder. Ignacio was just a man who had learned to survive by becoming something less than human. He had no hobbies, no passions, no dreams. He existed in a permanent state of readiness, always waiting for the next call, the next target, the next war. But the world was changing. The Mexican government, under pressure from the United States, was cracking down on the cartels harder than ever before. High-profile arrests were happening. Major bosses were being extradited. The old days of impunity were ending. Ignacio saw the writing on the wall. He knew that sooner or later, he would be caught or killed. It was inevitable. So he started preparing. He moved money into hidden accounts. He bought fake passports. He studied escape routes. Not because he wanted to run, but because running was the only logical option. In 2015, the Mexican military launched a massive operation in Culiacan, targeting Sinaloa Cartel leadership. Dozens of arrests were made. Safe houses were raided. Assets were seized. The empire was crumbling. Ignacio barely escaped. He was in a house when the military surrounded it. He slipped out through a tunnel system built years earlier for exactly this moment. He emerged miles away, stole a car, and drove into the mountains. Behind him, the city burned with sirens and gunfire. He knew he couldn't go back. Not to Culiacan. Not to the life he had known. He was 43 years old, a ghost with no home, no future, no purpose. For the first time in his life, Ignacio Páez Soto was truly alone. In 2016, Ignacio disappeared completely. Some say he fled to Central America. Others say he crossed into the United States and lives under a new identity. A few claim he was killed quietly, his body buried in the desert where no one would ever find it. The truth? No one knows. Because Ignacio Páez Soto wasn't just a man, he was a system. A product of a world where violence is currency and death is business. He was trained, used, and discarded like thousands of others before him. The Sinaloa Cartel doesn't mourn him. They don't remember him. They've already replaced him with someone younger, hungrier, more desperate. But in the villages of Sinaloa, old men still tell stories about El Silencio, about the ghost who pulled the trigger, about the man who killed without hesitation and disappeared without a trace. The stories grow with each telling, becoming myths, becoming legends. And somewhere, maybe in a small town far from the violence, there's a man who looks like Ignacio Páez Soto. He works a quiet job. He keeps his head down. He doesn't talk to anyone. At night, he sits alone in the dark, staring at nothing, haunted by the faces of the dead. Or maybe he's gone. Maybe the ghost finally found peace. Maybe death was the only escape he ever really wanted. Either way, the trigger still gets pulled. The bodies still fall. The cycle continues. Because Ignacio wasn't the disease. He was just a symptom. And the disease is still alive. Some men are born into darkness. Some men choose it. But a few are swallowed by it so completely, they become the darkness itself. Ignacio Páez Soto didn't escape the monster. He became it. And then, he vanished, like all ghosts eventually do.